Hello, everyone. It's 2 o'clock, and this is the Finance Committee meeting on October 22nd. And we have present the mayor, our city administrator, Scott Anderson, Angie Folkers, our finance director, council member Noble, Martin, and Peterson. And I believe that we have Nick Bird also. So with that, I would turn it over to you, Angie, to start us off.
Okay, thank you. So quick update on the August financials. They're actually in my inbox right now. I will review those this afternoon and get them out to council first thing tomorrow morning. And then September financials should be following shortly thereafter. We've been working on the budget, so we will get caught up on those though. We did get some October numbers from Department of Revenue this morning, so I wanted to share where we're at on sales tax and hotel motel. So October sales tax was about $171,000 for 2020 compared to $156,000 in 2019. About a $15,000 increase over last year, which is about 9%. So still making good strides there. And then the hotel motel tax, 2020 number was $206,000 compared to $205,000 in 2019. So about $1,000 increase, which is roughly 1%. So not seeing the huge amount to catch us up. So, but it's, staying on track. Year-to-date numbers through October, sales tax is up 5% and hotel motel tax is still down 8%. So it's improving every month, but it's still running a little behind. So those are good numbers. We had our audit exit conference last Thursday and great news to report. I'm sure you've probably heard it on the radio or somewhere else, but we have 2 clean audit reports coming out, the accountability audit report and the financial statement audit report. Just kind of some high level areas that they looked at. They looked at the golf course project, the sewer collection building, the purchase of some command vehicles for police and fire, our self-insurance for unemployment. They looked at LTAC, our ambulance billing, specifically the GEMT portion. They did cash receipting at various departments. They looked at Open Public Meetings Act requirements, and then as always, our financial statement reporting and internal controls. So clean audits on both. Once I get my hands on those, I will be sure to send them out to council as well as get them posted on the website for the public. Any questions on any of that so far?
I just have one question on the audit itself, because I know there were kind of extra questions asked of them. Did the auditors charge more for that, or is it just a flat fee for them doing the audit?
They ended up cutting some other areas to add in some of the concerns that they received later. So what they did, they didn't charge us anymore. They just cut some of the stuff they were going to look at to put space in the audit budget for the other areas that were brought up as concerns by the council members.
Good.
Any other questions? All right, I'm going to jump in. We have a very heavy agenda this time we're diving into budget stuff. So we have our first public hearing on the budget and got some concerns this morning about the fact that there's no budget out there to comment on. As you know, our original plan was to have that budget out October 12th, but that was delayed. So any of those concerns about the timing, staff is just sticking to the budget calendar that was revised by council. So any concerns about the timing and these public hearings and not having a budget, those should be directed to council. The staff's just doing what we're directed to do by the budget calendar. We are required to have 2 public hearings on the budget. We actually have 3 in the budget calendar, so we have 1 extra. The revenue and property tax public hearing that's also at the upcoming meeting counts as one of our public hearings. And there is a revenue section in the agenda. So that portion is in there. It's draft, of course, because we don't have a recommended budget yet, but that's included in there so people can see the revenue portion for the public hearing. And then we'll also have another public hearing on the overall budget on November 9th. So public will have an opportunity before they see the budget and then after they see the budget to comment on it. So any questions on, I just wanted you to be aware that we're getting concerns about that.
And the only thing I really have to say is I think we've had all of the presentations now on the budget. So if people had anything that they either particularly liked or didn't like, this is a good time to comment on that because there's just a lot of information out there.
Just a question. Is the survey that we did prior to starting the budget process, that is still on the website, correct?
Sarah, do you want to speak to that?
I have to check because it was on the news portion, and you know, after so long they fall off as we add new news things, but I think that we put the information under budget information.
Yeah.
So I think that it's still on there, but I can't say it with confidence. I will check while we're doing this meeting.
Well, because I was hoping that we could have that, you know, along with the public comments, and maybe in one of the agenda packets that we can put that back in there just to remind us as we go into the budget process of at least what comments that we got on the initial survey, so we just don't forget about the information we got prior.
That sounds good.
Okay.
We could put it in the agenda for November 9th because then they'll have the budget to look at too, and the project list and everything else.
And I did just confirm it is still on the website. So we had put it as a news brief and then again on File Pro and have a link under budget 2021-2022 information.
Okay, thanks.
So another old business item that I'm bringing to this next council meeting is the budget amendment number 3. So it'll be our third reading. All of the documents are in the agenda that went out yesterday. There have been a few updates since the last time council saw it. I clearly noted in there, labeled them 1026 of 20, so you could see exactly what did change. But because sales tax caught up, you know, I didn't want to project a negative in the sales tax anymore, so I took that out. So I just kind of went through and updated based on where we're currently at. I know we talked about rolling over things, but I wanted to clarify that. So it's rebudgeting. So we removed some of the budgeted items that we didn't use for 19 and 20, and it has a note, we're rebudgeting it for 21 and 22, just to make it really clear, because I know there's some confusion over rollovers, but it's actually unused and we have to rebudget it. So you'll see some notes in there. Some things did change, but I made it very clear what did change. So hopefully everybody looks at it before the meeting and comes prepared if they have any questions. So we can get that approved and then get the budget out to council on November 2nd. So we're still on track with that. So it's going really well. We're making some last minute revisions and I'm gonna start compiling it next week. So,
Okay, Angie,
oh, go ahead.
I just have a question on that, just so, because I know that when we do the budget amendment, you know, there's a lot of stuff in there, and a lot of times that we forget, you know, that we actually approved something in the past. Is there any way that we could do either smaller budget amendments, you know, so we do it more often, or you know, where we have a rolling number that we can look at so it doesn't kind of pop up and then you go, I got to remember when we voted on that? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how to make it easier so we're not in the same situation next year.
Sure. If you look at the comments in the budget amendment itself, it has the dates that council approved them before it came to the budget amendment. So it does have notes on there what council already approved in the council meeting date, and anything that says doesn't have council approved dates on it is something new that we're asking for at that time. Does that help?
Well, it is. I'm just trying to think that, you know, I don't know if this would have made any difference this time, but say that say that we had a smaller amount and where there are items that we could have approved without controversy. I mean, to get it, I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
how do we, is there a way that we could streamline it so it's easier in a smaller item for us to deal with?
Yeah. One option too would be if there's an item of contention,
Mm-hmm.
approve the budget amendment and amend it and have me take that out. So that might be
Okay.
one option in the future. If there's just one or two line items in there that are holding up the entire thing, council can ask to just strike those and bring them back later, which might have helped in this circumstance because I do believe it was just one or two things in there.
Okay, thanks.
Is there any way, because I know you have to have, we have to have the approval for what it is, and then you need the ordinance. That's why we do the budget amendment. When we're approving it, can't we just, after we approve it, then approve an ordinance at the same time? So then it's just in there and you don't have to do a separate one?
We could, but we would be approving ordinances probably every meeting. So that's why we batch them together because and do them about quarterly, because we don't necessarily want to bring a budget amendment to every council meeting.
Gotcha.
The last thing I have on my list of agenda items is the property tax ordinance. All the numbers are still really draft. We still don't have assessed values from the county or any of that information. So this is just our first reading. The recommendation is to wait until our second reading to approve it. By then, hopefully we'll have the assessed values and better numbers to look at. So these are all just estimates so that we could put the budget together. Agenda items. Any other questions before we move on to Nick? I know he's got a hot topic agenda item to talk about.
I just have, is there a place that I could go or someone could go to and pull the data that you just gave us on sales tax of what the county's doing and individual cities in Grace Harbor?
I don't know. I don't know if there's one location where all of that is held. I don't see anybody else's numbers when I log in to the system. So I'm not sure how we would, I can ask that question and see if there's one place where that's centrally located, but to my knowledge, it's sharing through just other finance directors and things like that.
Yeah, because I know if you go to the state auditor site, it has good data, but it's way behind. And I know in the businesses that I run, that it works well when I can compare to other locations.
Yeah.
And to see, because I might think that I'm doing really well and realize that I'm not because everyone else is doing well, or I'm doing poorly, but I'm doing better than everybody else. And I know that I've seen the state numbers, they've revised their numbers up, from a revenue point of view.
Right.
And of course we've done, but of course our improvement has been greater than what the state is. And so I was just wondering how Grace Harbor in general is doing.
Yeah. And I did have meetings, pretty routine meetings with the other Grace Harbor finance directors during the midst of COVID. And the consensus was that everybody was surprised that their sales tax numbers held. They didn't see the drops that they thought. So it was pretty much in line with what we were seeing. There weren't any cities that were seeing a huge hit. And it was like, I wonder why this is happening. And so we talked about that stuff. We would share like percentages of where we were at and things like that, but not real hard trends or anything. So.
And just another thing, just to throw out before we move on, and this might be a mayor, or there've been discussions that, they're having difficulties with the census, which will tie into what revenue comes in based on different things. So what do you have any idea what impact would be if the census is not completed?
I will ask the mayor to help with that one.
And no, I don't have any more information, but I know that a lot of things are based on our population count.
Mm-hmm.
And if people don't do the census, then we're going to show a lower population count and it will affect what we get. So.
Okay. All right. I mean, I was just reading an article about that, and I'm just thinking of how much federal stuff is impacted by what the census say, and since it's been delayed, and we're growing, that is probably not a positive thing for us.
Just, maybe Scott or Mayor, roughly, do we know where we're at this time with the building permits for houses?
Well, we have the numbers for how many have been done, but that doesn't necessarily directly link to the census because a lot of those could be secondary homes, obviously, or people
Right,
don't
yeah.
live in them. But yeah, we post those on a regular basis. All our building permit information should be on the website.
Yeah, it seems to be about a month behind though. I'm just wondering up year to date up to now, because I know it doesn't affect the census, but it does affect property taxes.
Yeah, it runs almost exactly a month behind. So, I mean, we can extrapolate only kind of based on what happened this time last year, September, October numbers, and I would doubt they'd be significantly different. But I can either look for that information and pull it off the website and send it out.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right, if there's no more questions, I think we can go to Nick to talk about storm rates.
Thank you. So included in this upcoming council packet is a new ordinance addressing the stormwater rates as we had discussed at the last council meeting. The basic gist is that or what's included in the ordinance is addressing the rates via CPI from 2002 to 2020. And so it translates to a pretty sizable percentage increase, meaning I want to say it's about 48%. But the reality is that the dollars and cents, it doesn't affect it that much. What we're talking about on an average square foot basis, or for an average 9,000 square foot parcel is roughly $1.41 per month change. And so that framework is included in the council for discussion at the upcoming meeting. And then a secondary item that was incorporated was in an effort to try to establish a capital reserve account and add roughly $1 a month to that average lot, and specifically allocates that money to a capital reserve account, which we have not established that capital reserve account yet. We wanted to initiate that discussion and see if that was something that council really wanted to move forward with or not. And so the framework is there for discussion. We have not established for lack of better words, a pecking order or a project list per se. At the end of the day, the purpose of this adjustment is that our backs are up against the wall from an operations standpoint. We know we need to make the financial adjustment, and here's the path forward. And so that's the basic framework of what we've got. I don't think it's overly complex per se. It's just a matter of going through the motions. So I'd be happy to answer any questions or listen to any thoughts that people have at this point in time, though.
Well, personally, I think we definitely need to do something with this the CPI, and that's a good idea. I do agree with the doing the capital improvement. I'm just not sure, with the COVID, that the timing, and this is just the first reading, correct? Because we're going to make sure that the public knows that this is happening, to do a second or maybe even a third reading, correct?
Yeah, and that is included on the agenda, Bill. Let me also add, there's one other item that is incorporated into this so that we don't find ourselves in the same situation again 15 years from now. The third item incorporated into this ordinance is an annual inflation based on CPI from June to June, just like what we're doing on the front end now.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Nick, on the just on the storm rates, how are the storm rates figured per site? Is it like water, or is it just straight per hookup, or what?
It is a cost per square foot of property. And so if you have a 10,000 square foot property, you're going to pay more than the person with 8,000 square feet. And so it's solely square footage based of your total property. So it's very straightforward. You know, fortunately or unfortunately, it's not dependent upon the rain or, you know, there's no connection fees or anything else along those lines. It's just every single lot in Ocean Shores, based on the square footage, is charged the amount based on that square footage.
So when you say $1.41 change, is that on your bill or square footage or what?
So that would be a average 9,000 square foot lot. And that would be a monthly change on that 9,000 square foot lot's bill. If you have an 8,000 square foot lot, that number is going to be smaller. If you have a 12,000 square foot lot, the number is going to be bigger.
Okay. In the proposal for the capital reserve account is?
It is an additional roughly $1 a month per that 9,000 square foot lot. So that translates to roughly, you know, $250,000 a year that would be put into the capital reserve account. And so the way it is currently framed in the ordinance is that would be for years 2021, 22, 23, and 24, and sunset at 2024. And so we thought at some point in time, I mean, it would be prudent if the intent is to save money for future projects, we've got to have a stopping point. And so, you know, I thought, you know, 4 years is definitely more than reasonable. But again, all of this is open for discussion. You know, that this is kind of the first blush, if you will, for evaluation and discussion.
Okay. I personally, I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I mean, that LEAPS helps me understand from a dollar amount what we're talking about, and helping me understand it's a little bit different than how the water rates are figured.
Exactly. And, you know, that's the whole point associated with this, you know, first reading, second reading approach is, you know, it gives us an opportunity to kind of flesh some of this out. You know, I recognize that not everybody's on board there or might not be on board. And, you know, that's completely fine. At the end of the day, our responsibility is to, you know, provide flood management and make sure that we can take care of, you know, the infrastructure out there. And so I know that the base component, you know, will definitely do that and give us what we need to make that happen. That secondary component is to address some of the bigger picture items that we know are going to be coming down the line.
All right. I think that's all I have. Mayor, do you have anything you wanted to speak to?
Okay, I did. First of all, the CARES money that we have gotten nearly $300,000 in CARES funding. It's due to be used up by the end of November. And the state has just told us that we can use the remainder to pay firefighter, EMS, or police salaries in October and November. So we will use the remainder of the funds for that. We also are ordering a Zoll ventilator, 3 of them. What we've been doing, and it kind of boggles my mind, but what we've been doing during the crisis is if the guys go out on a call that has breathing problems or, possible COVID or whatever, they have a ventilator that sits there on the counter. It's 10 years old, and they'll grab it as they head for the ambulance, rather than having one in each ambulance. So we think obviously it's better to have one in each ambulance so that there's no question, and there's no, first one out gets it, the next one doesn't, which is certainly not a good plan. Anyway, they're about 10,000 a piece. So we are ordering that, and I will bring that to you in arrears, because we have to get it ordered. We have to put on the order that it is to be delivered by November 30th. So I won't have that this council meeting, but we'll put it on the agenda the next council meeting for your approval.
And those are being paid for through the CARES Act?
Yes.
Yeah.
And what else financially? I'm going through the budget. I'm driving Angie as crazy as I can. And she's very patient, kind of back and forthing, trying to say, is this, is this, that, and make sure that we save our reserves. And I'm doing my very best to make sure that our general fund reserve is closer to 2 million than 1.5. And my thought on that is, if we have the extra reserve and we need it, it's there. If we don't need it and COVID goes away with vaccines and everything this next year, the money's still there and we can use it. And when we look at the budget for the second year, then we might want to put some things in that we took out the first year in order to keep that savings. I just think it's really important in these times when we don't know for the next months, probably until maybe mid 2021. There's not going to be a lot of vaccination apparently, and it will be selective. And so we're going to continue doing what we're doing. And I just think it's important that we be prepared just in case. And it's easy to spend money later, but it's hard to have that set aside. So we'll do that and make sure that we're as prepared as we can be for the eventualities. I did look through the council guidelines on putting money away toward this and that, and have tried to make sure, and I know that Angie did too, make sure that we're meeting all of your guidelines and using funds where you have asked us to use them, so that certain kinds of money are going in certain places. Our debt issues look really good. I'm really pleased with that. And we will pay off some of the small things. And, we talked about, I think last council meeting, the idea that we were going to try and refinance the convention center again. We're not going to plan on extending the time. It would still be the same time frame. So we're not like pushing it out further. But if we can get a lower interest rate and save nearly $500,000 over the next 12, 14 years, that would be terrific. So we're continuing on with that. Scott, can you think of any other monetary sorts of things that are going on?
No, the only thing that I was alerted to in reading through it is the fact that in 2021, the GEO bonds are going to go off. They will be paid off in 2021.
Yeah.
So that will go off tax bills for citizens when that happens. So this is something to keep in mind as we have the rate discussion, that those will at some point financially could offset each other.
Yeah, we have to remember too, we have the EMS levy expiring at the end of 2021. So we're going to be working on that next year. We're going to have another ballot measure to get that 50-cent levy back on a ballot in 2021. So hopefully we can do another 6-year starting in 2022. So that's on the horizon as well.
Yeah, and I was looking at what was on our minds in 2018 as we were putting the last biennium together, and one of the big concerns was not enough money in fire and EMS. And I think that Angie has done a really terrific job of making that work, helping us to hold back on certain purchases and that sort of thing, but also working really closely with the folks who do our billing and making sure that they're attacking the bills in a way that maximize how much money we bring in, because it makes a big difference.
I have two things to bring up, and this might be for another meeting with it. But one of the things on my notes I was looking at is the wetland mitigation. You know, moving credits to the city at a different rate, and I spent some time just looking at the things, and I still cannot get my head wrapped around what it looks like from a balance sheet when, say that we were to sell credits to the city, because you're moving from one place to the other. So if, as we move forward on that discussion, if we could get maybe a diagram or something, because I'm having some difficulty just trying to figure out, does that put us ahead or just keep us the same, or what happens?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I will put something together. My personal sense is what we're trying to do is keep even, so that we're replacing any credits that we use out of the bank, and that the city will never do less than that, because to use up the credits without any benefit to the bank over a period of time and not replace them would not be a good thing. So I have contacted Department of Ecology and asked for their advice on what would be some reasonably good projects that they think we could do. I know we've talked about a lot of projects over time of, bundling sticks along the edge of the shoreline and things like that to make shade for fish, because ours is both a habitat and a wetland conservation area. So we'll look and see if we can find something really good for us to do that has the most benefit to the wetlands. And I think that satisfies. I did, you'll see in there, I did go back and find when we bought the property, how much we paid for it, and the fact that we're still paying for it, and put those kinds of details in the resolution, so that helps a little. But you're right, it's a little confusing to figure out what's going on otherwise, because it's kind of circular.
And then my final question, sorry about asking too many questions, but my final question is that we do have houses that right now are not being charged for water because of the moratorium that we put on there. Those houses that are not being charged, we're seeing that in our statements right now. So it's no money. So if we were to receive any money from those pieces of property, that would be a plus to our revenue, not that we would see all of a sudden we're going to get a hit, right?
I want to just clarify that everybody's still getting billed. So
right.
It's just that some people aren't paying. So
Correct.
Those amounts are just accruing on customer accounts. The governor did extend the moratorium through December 31st. I'm sure you saw. But once that moratorium is lifted and we're free to do shutoffs again, those balances are still going to be owing. And that's been the concern of every utility, the PUD, everybody, that these customers are getting so far behind in their bills that when the shutoffs are reinstated, it's going to be pretty hard for them to catch back up. So when the time comes, we're going to have to work with those customers, arrange payment plans, things of that nature to get their services back on if they get shut off, but still make sure they're making an effort to get caught up on those balances. So everybody's still getting billed. And you're right, when they do pay, it's the lack of payment just affects our utility fund. So we're seeing less water, sewer, storm revenue. I've been pretty, it's been looking okay though. A lot of people are staying on top of it and not using that as a reason not to pay their bill. So it's hasn't had quite the effect we thought it would at first. But yeah, we're gonna have some cleanup work to do once that moratorium's lifted.
Okay.
And Angie, I know that there's a period of time and a number of notices before shut off and that sort of thing.
Oh
that
yeah, absolutely.
you all have to do. So it's a period of several months, isn't it, before that happens?
Yeah,
so people have plenty of warning. So there's lots of time for them to work with us and get some sort of schedule going.
Absolutely. Yep. They get a bill, then they get a past due, then they get a shut off notice, and then they're still given time to pay. And we're very flexible when it comes, you know, we realize what the situation is going to be, and we've always been flexible. And as long as people are trying to work with us and trying to catch back up and have a payment plan in place, then that's the important thing.
I have a question.
Okay.
Educate me here a little bit with the idea that some of these larger apartment complexes is the water usually paid in their rent?
No.
Or it's all separate?
Yeah. So the building itself will get a utility bill if it's like a, I don't know, I'm assuming you're talking about some of the ones over by my office, but
right.
The utility bill, how the landlords, I'm sure they put some kind of cost into the tenant's rent to pay the utilities, but that's a bill that goes to the landlord and then they pay the amount. I'm not sure how they work it on the tenant side.
Well, that's what I was asking. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone have anything else before we end it?
I'm good.
All right.
Good job, Angie.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you. Things are
Yeah,
going well.
We'll get
All right.
we'll get through it. Appreciate all you're doing.
All
Thanks,
right.
everyone. We'll
Thank
see you Monday.
All right. See you Monday.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.